Ladies and gentlemen, I will call this meeting to order. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we acknowledge the town of Edson is located on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral lands of the Niqawak, Saulteaux, Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and the Atipimiswak Métis Nations. We honor the knowledge of this land, the elders and youth which gather here, and our ancestors who have gathered here for centuries. Before we take a motion for the agenda, I'm going to hand things over to administration. They do have some changes to the agenda tonight. CO Beveridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening we do have a request. Oh, this is our new. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a request to adjust the agenda if council would consider. Closed session, automated traffic enforcement update, and that's section 24, advice from officials. And then also to, we have a request also to remove item period 2, fees and charges bylaw at this time.
All right, thank you. And I think Ms. Veerboom is going to put a motion on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just drafting it up here. One moment.
So can I get a motion, please, that the agenda for the December 3rd, 2024 regular meeting of council be adopted with the addition of closed session item K2, automated traffic enforcement under FOIP section 24, advice from officials, and the removal of item F2, draft fees and charges bylaw number 2318. Go ahead, Councillor Chouinard.
I'll make the adoption agenda with the additions and changes.
Thank you, Councillor Chouinard. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Can I get a motion, please, that the minutes of the November 19th, 2024 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. Next up, we have the draft elections bylaw number 2312, and our returning officer, Adrian Tate, will be presenting on this item tonight. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you, council members, for allowing me to come back to present the draft elections bylaw. As you are aware, the 2025 municipal election is approaching quite quickly, and as such, administration has been researching the best practices and reviewing updated legislation. We previously presented the draft elections bylaw at the November 12th Committee of the Whole meeting, and your committee provided feedback, which we have now incorporated into the bylaw. So just a quick review. The changes that have been legislated through municipal affairs included the prohibiting automated voting. Nomination period was extended from January 1st to nomination day. The campaign limits, Alberta-wide limits were introduced. The third-party advertising, the electors register is another one of the key changes, and councillor training is now mandatory. So at committee, we reviewed a number of items that needed to be addressed either prior to December 31st or June 30th, depending on which one. And now that it's incorporated into one bylaw, it should make the process somewhat more streamlined. We reviewed criminal record checks, nomination deposits, special ballots, expense limits, voting hours, election dates, ballot order, and other responsibilities for the returning officer. At that time, committee recommended maintaining the current practice of not requiring deposits, so that has been removed from the draft bylaw. Criminal record checks was one of the topics that was discussed at length. While council was overall supportive of requiring criminal record checks, you did request some clarification surrounding the process. Since then, we've confirmed with the RCMP and also reviewed more in detail the regulations surrounding criminal record checks. Timeline considerations for a basic criminal record check. This is one where it is literally a checkbox. It's either a yes or a no, is 1 week. Vulnerable selector check, again, it's 1 week if the person has no record and is not flagged. Now, that being said, just because a person is flagged does not mean that they have a criminal record. But if they have a similar name to somebody who does, they have a birthday similar to somebody who does, at that point in time, the RCMP would request that they come in and do fingerprints, and then it gets sent to Ottawa. If that is the case, it is up to 1 month to get those criminal record checks back. The LAEA requires that if we pass by bylaw a criminal record check requirement, it is part of the nomination package, therefore it becomes public record. There is some parameters around that though, just because it's public record, it will not be posted online. If a person wants to request to see it, they have to come to the Civic Center and it has to be reviewed in the presence of the returning officer or substitute returning officer or secretary. They can't take pictures of it. They can't take copies of it, anything like that. There have been additional municipalities that have brought this forward to council, including Yellowhead County. It's coming back to council again. Their bylaw does not include criminal record checks. Rocky View County, still a yes. Drayton Valley, they've passed the first 2 readings of their bylaw to include them. County of Wetaskiwin has included them, and Hinton, again, is coming before with it being included. So some of the changes that was made to the bylaw following the committee of the whole meeting were amending the definition within the bylaw to require that it be conducted through the RCMP. All costs are to be incurred by the candidate. And then we've already discussed the examination of the nomination papers have to be during regular business hours and in the presence of the returning officer. And yeah, if there's no questions there, then I keep going. The order of the candidates on the ballots. The LAEA actually is fairly specific to this, so we have amended the bylaw to read that the order of the candidates will be according to LAEA Section 43. This provides the greatest amount of flexibility for this council and future councils. There are 2 options. One is alphabetical by last name, which is what we have traditionally done. The other is by lot. In that case, it is still alphabetical by last name, but it rotates through. So you print them, the first name then becomes the last name on the next lot, and it keeps moving up the list. Does that make sense? So if council chose to do that, that would be the other option. I should mention that in addition to that, it is required that at the voting stations, it be set out so that no 2 consecutive voters would receive the same order on the ballots.
Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, through the mayor too, Mrs. Tate. So on the lot, so like would a ballot book be built like, let's say you had 10 people running, so then you'd have every 10 pages is different? Is that what you mean by lot?
Yes, so every candidate would eventually be number 1 on the list. It would just scroll through so that A would be first, and then on the next lot that's printed, A would be actually last, B would be first, and then B would be
Depending on how many
last,
number
and then
of
C would be-
candidates to determine it.
Yeah, but it still goes by last name and alphabetical. It just rotates through the order. So everybody would be in every spot at least once.
That's an interesting way of doing it. To me, it seems, and if I further to that, it just seems really fair that way, because then you have, we could all get a ballot here and we'd all have our first name at the top or not at the top, right? So I think that's a neat way of doing it.
Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor and Ms. Tate. So in the package here, it says that at a later date, council would choose one of the 2. Is that correct?
You can choose, if you want to choose tonight, you can choose now.
And
It's,
is it
we're
just
just,
by
in the
resolution?
bylaw, it is, you can choose.
And it would be by just by resolution. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns on that particular item? I know we had a fairly lengthy discussion. I find that very interesting, but I think that counting afterwards would be very difficult. It's already hard enough to get election results. People want it like at 8:01. My preference, I think, would be just to leave it the standard way that we have done it. If we had voting tabulators, I don't know how that would work if we had voting tabulators, but we're not allowed that anymore. So I think we're going to be in a situation, if you have ballots all changed up like that, it'd be horrendous for the volunteers. We'll be there till 2026 counting. So, yeah, that's my thought on it. I really like the idea of having it all changed up, but I think it just complicates things a lot more for the counting piece, and I don't think we really get a huge benefit out of it. So that's just my comments. Councillor Taylor, you have something you'd add?
Just through the mayor, I just agree with your comments as well. That's it.
All right, thank you. Councillor Chenard?
Same thing through the mayor. I agree with your comments. That was the most important part. It's not really the thing, but the poor people trying to count these would be very confusing.
Councillor Moore?
Through the chair to Adrian. Yeah, I know this is, I certainly agree with the old way, but just curious, has any other jurisdiction used this different way up to this point?
Through the mayor to Councillor Moore. Canmore does do printing by lots, and I believe Peace River, but those were the only two. We threw it out provincially, and those were the only two municipalities that responded in that venue and in that frame to say that they actually print by lot. And I do know that Peace River is putting forward, their administration is recommending that they no longer do that and go back to alphabetical.
All right. Thank you.
Generally, committee was supportive of beginning the count of the special ballot box, advanced vote ballot box, and institutional vote ballot box at 7:30 on election day, so that remained within the bylaw. It is important to note that voters who are requesting special ballots must be on that permanent electors register that will be coming forward in the new year, and all of this will be on our website as well. And that concludes the major changes within the bylaw. I'm open to any questions.
All right, so council, do you have any further questions, comments, or concerns? If we, just based on the conversation here with the ballots, if we look under section 10, 10.4, I think you got enough feedback that you'll make sure that the status quo is followed moving forward. I don't think you need a special resolution directing that. So with that, council, do you have any further questions or comments for Ms. Tate before we take a motion from the floor? See none. Thank you for all your hard work on this. Council, can I get a motion, please? Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
Are you looking for a first reading?
Yes, please.
First reading.
All right, Councillor Chenard moves that council give first reading to bylaw number 2312. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Can I get a motion, please, that council give second reading to bylaw number 2312? Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
I make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Can I get a motion that bylaw number 2312 be placed for third reading? Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried. And can I get a motion, please, that council give third reading to bylaw number 2312? Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Chachka. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. And can I get a motion that council repeal bylaw number 2257? Go ahead, Councillor Pisichny.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Pisichny. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Ms. Tate. With F2 being removed from the agenda, we'll move on to business items. We will welcome our finance manager, Mr. Tyler Goebel, on uncollectible linear property taxes.
There we go. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking the time to listen to a presentation on uncollectible linear property taxes this evening. So as some of you may be aware, one of the burdens that municipalities continue to face are delinquent oil and gas properties who abandon their properties and leave municipalities in the lurch for uncollected property taxes. In response to this, the government of Alberta initiated some programs a number of years ago. The Provincial Education Requisition Credit, short form is PERC, or the Designated Industrial Requisition Credit, or DIRC. And what these programs were intended to do were, if a municipality were to write off their property taxes that would have been collectible, that they will credit the provincial education and designated industrial tax for those delinquent properties. This program was slated to conclude in 2023, but the government of Alberta has extended it for an additional 2 years for the 24 and 2025 taxation years. So the next couple of slides, I won't go into the details of them. We don't really need to discuss the eligibility criteria, but it's just here purely for information purposes. So the separate eligibility criteria for the PERC and the DIRC. And the reason that I just bring that up is that we have found two properties in our rolls 40558 and 40582 that meet the criteria to make an application for the PERC and DIRC credits. So the numbers that we're looking at writing off would be one of the properties is $875, and another property is 3 years of uncollectible taxes, so from 2021 to 2024, and that's about $5,200. And then just in brackets there, you can just see the breakdown of how much is taxes and how much of finance charges that are accumulating over time on these things. So we would write off $6,128. So we take that off of our accounting records. Now we wouldn't be able to collect all of that money. We would only get a credit for the provincial requisition portion and the designated industrial portion. So in this instance, we would be expected to recover a credit of about $407 for PERC and a very nominal amount of $19 for the DIRC. And the main reason for this is it just helps recover something rather than just leaving something on the books that is likely uncollectible over time. And so unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to recover the full $6,000. We'd only be recovering about $430. But that's the recommendation that we're making today, is that council direct administration to write off the following accounts as bad debt, and in order to become eligible for the PERC and DIRC programs.
Thank you, Mr. Goebel, for your presentation. Any questions? Councillor Chenard?
Through the mayor to Mr. Goebel. I know we're talking about some time ago, like my biggest fear was some of these empty contaminated lots that we're going to end up with them. Is there any kind of programs that if we end up with a contaminated lot and we get a fruit, is there any kind of programs to clean it up? Because getting the credit back is nothing, but if we get stuck with them, any programs, or it's similar, it's kind of off topic, but I'm just questioning that.
Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Through the mayor to Councillor Chenard, I am not familiar with would be brownfields, but I'm not familiar at this time. I'd have to do some research and bring it back to council if you're interested in that. At this point, we're just looking for council direction to support the application going forward. on it.
Thank you. Counselor Chashkin.
Thanks. Through the mayor to administration. So my question is quite similar to Councillor Chenard's, and I'm just curious about, are we inheriting a liability with this, or is it an asset? If we don't collect the taxes and we then I'm assuming we take over that linear property. Is that right? Then is it an asset on our books and we have to deal with it like we do all our other assets, or is it?
We're not talking about tax auction here. We're just writing off bad debt.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on that? All right, thank you, Mr. Goebel. Can I get a motion, please, that council authorize administration to expense the 2024 uncollectible linear property taxes as presented as bad debt? Go ahead, Councillor Bevan.
I'll make the motion that council authorize administration to expense the 2024 uncollectible linear property taxes as presented as bad debt.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Goebel, for your presentation. Next up, we have composting bins in public parks, presented by our Transportation and Parks Manager, Ryan O'Sullivan. Welcome, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening I will be presenting on placing composting bins in town parks. So we've reached out to several municipalities regarding this experience with composting bins. Devon, Whitecourt, Drayton Valley, Hinton, Peace River, Jasper, and Redwater. They were all consulted on their use and consideration of public composting bins. And except with Jasper, they all reported not implementing public park composting programs. Most provided their service in waste recycling facilities or waste transfer stations or with their curbside programs. With the exceptions of Parks Canada, they instituted a neighborhood composting program in Jasper where they provided 2 bins on each side of the town where residents took their composting and they picked it up and took it to their landfill, and which at this time the program has been suspended because of contaminations they're getting in their composting. So these are the possible locations if we decided to go with the program on where we'd like to put the composting bins, which would be in the town parks, trailheads. There'd be about 14 locations throughout the town. So for this, this would be the composting bins for if the town would to take it over. This would require staff to turn the bins, collect, dump all the containers, which would be dumped into our grass bin for the composting, which would be taken to Edmonton in their composting program. If we were to do this, I would want the staff to be trained in composting, which would be a $400 cost per employee. Staff members, there'd be 5. And then this would all be dependent on how well they're being used. The bin costs are about $2,000 per bin. So there'll be a one-time capital cost of $42,000 plus the $10,000 for staff and operational cost. The next is a contracted portable bin. So this would be if GFL, we placed a GFL bin in some of the parks. So this would be a $7.50 per bin. Again, 14 bins would be at $630 per month for 6 months when we'd run the program through the summer months and spring. Plus the tonnage and disposal fees would be part of that. So these would have to be placed somewhere easily to be picked up by a truck. So it's probably not the best place on some of the trailheads or parks. It'd have to be out on the road. And there's some pros and cons. Easy pickup time, There's no staff needed. Again, the bins do go missing, so lots of them will have to be replaced. And then we did look at a possible in-ground system. CERTA in-ground containers reached out, so these have no upfront costs, but they would be $450 a month to empty them. So for each bin, if we did 14, we're looking at about $70,000 for operational costs per year. And again, pros, easy pickup, no staff time. Cons, the big construction to put these into the ground, the operational cost of a $70,000 a year, and again, they don't have to be adjacent to a street so they can be picked up. So we hope the information provided tonight provides some context and meaningful discussion on the request to investigate the composting bins in the town parks. Our composting is important to the town. A waste and recycling program. It helps extend the landfill's life by diverting compostable materials. Gathering the information on public spaces and composting pros and has been provided challenging, as it doesn't appear to be a standard of service provided by most municipalities that we've talked to so far. And given the estimated financial implications for this as well. So administration is not recommending the town implement a public composting program at this time. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan. Council, any questions? Go ahead, Councillor.
Through the mayor to Mr. Sullivan, totally agree with your finding, not recommending it, because A, the contamination, and we do have a recycling program in town, so I recommend people take their compost home with the regular garbage and compost it properly. The cost doesn't warrant it.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Through the mayor to Mr. O'Sullivan. So if we did adopt this program, what are the chances of somebody coming along and stealing some of these bins?
Oh, well, I'd say very easily. Again, unless we mounted them in concrete surfaces, but this just, again, if staff does it and is rotating them on site, you would put them in a concrete block. They would never go missing. But they're pretty permanent if we did decide to go that route.
All right, any other further comments or questions? Seeing none, I just would say that I agree, obviously, it's not worth the cost, but I would say that to our youth council representatives, I know they have a big interest in environmental items, that maybe this item be shared with them, and just to get some general discussion going and report back during your committee reports what their thoughts are on this program. I think sometimes we forget to maybe get some perspective from our youth council, and I think this is one of those areas in which they rather enjoy talking about and have a good perspective on environmental responsibility versus the financial impacts of such. So with that, council, I will take a motion that we accept the presentation on composting bins in public parks as information. Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
I'll make the motion. We accept it for information.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to council committee reports, and we are going back to November the 20th, and today we will start with Councillor Chachka.
Okay, thank you. So on November 20th, I attended the Homelessness RCMP Town Hall meeting for businesses. On November 21st, I had a Community Futures West Yellowhead strategic planning session meeting. That went well. And then on the November 27th, we had our first physician attraction and retention committee meeting. So it's finally getting going a little bit. The meeting was quick because it was right ahead of another meeting. We talked about our terms of reference and where that is and what the committee is and what it isn't. We had a discussion and update on the current situation of physicians in Edson. So currently we have 12 physicians at the Edson Medical Center. That's where the update was provided. And there was, we have some unofficial word that some will be leaving in the new year, but haven't given that notice to HS. So, but they have given that to the clinic, and we're still waiting to hear on some other ones. But we did find out that our ideal amount of physicians in town are 16, so we're looking at around, I'll give or take 4 to 6-ish right now. So we're working on how we can move forward with that. Some other discussion about other areas of healthcare workers in Edson that are also lacking. Currently, HS is short 2.5 FTEs, and then also we're also short 3 mental health workers. So there's definitely some room for improvement there. We had an update on what's currently happening and a few different committees that we need to learn a little bit more information. We realize there's quite a few different silos within this whole physician world of hiring. And we need to kind of break those down and find out what each of those groups can do and how we can collaborate with them. So that was kind of the basis of that meeting. Immediately following that, on the same evening, I attended the Community Care Foundation meeting, provided the update as well for that, and got some information that, so we have a fashion show coming up on March 6th, which is a fundraiser for the foundation. Also on the same day, RPAP is doing a student health trade show site visit at the hospital, so they'll be able to bring local students in that are semi-interested or wanting to know more information, and into the hospital, into that environment, and kind of show them like this is how you like get blood, take blood from like a dummy or something, right? So they can just see like, hey, this is kind of what this is, and other areas within the healthcare role. So that is my update.
Thank you, Councillor Chouinard.
Mine's real easy. I have nothing to report. My meetings are all coming up.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. November 20th, I attended the Edson Library Board meeting. November 28th, I was on a Zoom meeting with Alberta Munis. We dealt with resolutions that could not be fit into the regular yearly meeting, which was on September 25th, 27th. November 30th, I attended and took part in the Santa Claus parade and helped to brush the snow off Eddie the squirrel, who could have been snowbound. December 2nd, attended a YRL, Yellowhead Regional Library Zoom meeting. Hank Schmidt was elected as chair. The municipality will be paying less, municipalities, as the pay scale has been reverted to the population list as of next year. And that's all I have to report.
All right, thank you, Councillor Pasicny.
On the 28th, I had attended the Moving Edson board meeting. Some exciting news coming out of there. Our executive director has been successful in obtaining grants, so we should be seeing some new buses coming our way. She's doing a heck of a job there, and then there's some other announcements we're expecting coming out of there as well. We can't talk about it yet, but yeah, just keep going because she keeps digging for more stuff. So doing an amazing job of finding us money. So that's really exciting. And then yesterday we had our youth council meeting. Yeah, Councillor Taylor can speak more to that. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, and Councillor Taylor. Oh, boy. My finger is too fat. Let's see here. Let's try this again.
The correct size. All right.
Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
On November 20th, I attended the RCMP Town Hall and representing the Homelessness Task Force. I'll have certainly more to say on that with our upcoming notices of motion. They'll be happening here later in the agenda. And yesterday, December 2nd, I attended a youth council meeting where we had a fantastic presentation by Morgan Roberts, our EDO, asking our youth council a variety of questions. It was very interactive. What makes Edson special? What's important to you? What would make Edson better? And what should we be doing to make our community move forward? Some great comments from the youth council throughout that discussion. And then they continue to move forward on their homelessness project of providing a dinner for, and they're working on the details of how that'll work, and as well as raising some money for the Edson Food Bank in the springtime. So working hard on that, and that is my report.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. November 20th, also attended the RCMP Town Hall, and then on the 27th, the Physician Attraction and Retention Committee meeting with Councillor Chachka. It was great to see some interested community members attending that meeting as well, looking to get involved, including some healthcare professionals in our community from the past that were very successful in recruiting doctors to this community, looking to take an active role, and we're trying to learn from them some best practices. I think they provided some really good insight, and certainly provided a lot of opinions on the current state of where we are in terms of recruiting doctors. And so I'm hopeful that this group will be able to move forward. And I think we've scheduled another meeting here in December to continue to move this forward. And I have to thank Councillor Chachka, who has been really working hard on making this move forward, and getting these meetings scheduled and chairing them as we hand things over to the community members to take over. So, and I think our administration has also assisted a little bit as well, so appreciate that. And that is my report. We have no information items, and we will go to notices of motion. And it is my notice of motion, so I will speak to it here. I think all the information is in the background materials. The meeting that was held here a couple weeks ago with the RCMP Town Hall, I think was very well attended, with nearly 100 people in attendance, and a lot of concerns were raised, and some, I think, very legitimate concerns in terms of safety, in particular to our commercial district, the impacts of the unhoused population in our community, and some really interesting information from service providers. And I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between the information that is being provided by service providers and what the perception is in the community. But everybody was able to share that information and provide their comments. As a municipality, homelessness is not within our realm of responsibility. However, public safety is, and we have to also collaborate with other levels of government. As this is our community, but things like mental health, addictions, healthcare, those are provincial, federal responsibilities. So normally when a notice of motion comes forward, that will be placed on the next council agenda, the actual motions and the debate on that. But considering that we have no meetings until January, and the important issue that this is, I am requesting that council waive that notice, so we can debate and discuss these motions tonight. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Veerboom to put a motion on the screen to waive the notice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just pull it up here.
So the motion is that council dispense with the requirement to provide notice for the notice of motion. And I see Councillor Chouinard is queued up. Would you like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that council dispense with the requirement to provide notice for notice of motion.
All right, thank you. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. So I will speak to this a little further. So I know that not all of council was able to attend that meeting, but there was concerns that people feel very unsafe downtown with some individuals that may be under the influence of drugs or have mental health issues that may be aggressive or violent. And so my first motion is that council, I'll move that council make a formal request to the Edson RCMP to conduct foot and vehicle patrols in collaboration with Town of Edson peace officers in areas of concern for vagrancy, such as the commercial district, during the day and during business closing at times, to enhance public safety. And with that, I will open the floor to any questions, comments, or concerns. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor, I'll offer my comments on the motion. I'm supportive of the motion, as I was at the town hall representing the task force at the front. First of all, Staff Sergeant Delisle did a fantastic job at that forum. It's a difficult scenario to be in when people are upset and they're passionate about their businesses and they feel there's a safety concern. And Staff Sergeant Delisle was very clear that safety is the wheelhouse of the RCMP. And so he was there and he heard people's concerns loud and clear and he pointed people in the right direction, which was great to say if they're not getting the service level that they need and require from the RCMP to contact him directly. He wants to know about these things. In terms of what people said in terms of that meeting, I mean, this spun off of the Community Futures walk that was done in October. Councillor Chachka and Councillor Chouinard were both on that walk and heard loud and, nope, Councillor Chouinard was not. Just Councillor Chachka, my apologies, but just Councillor Chachka. And they heard loud and clear that there were concerns in the business community. Businesses locking their doors during the day. Businesses escorting clients to and from their vehicles. Hiring more staff at night. And we need to hear that, because if these businesses don't feel safe in that community, if customers don't feel safe in that area, they're not going to shop there, and then we're not going to have a downtown core. So this is one way to help address those safety concerns. And I go back much the same as the agent program. It's not a long-term solution. It is mitigating the problem, but it's at least hearing what that business community is saying. We need to hear loud and clear what's being said there. So certainly throughout that night, I did want to jump in more, but since it was led by the RCMP, I did allow Staff Sergeant Delisle to take the lead on questions and the concerns that are there. So I think that's all my comments with regards to this motion. I'll have more comments coming up with the subsequent motions.
Thank you. Councillor Pizicny.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm a little confused. I'm first and foremost, I'm for the motion, so I don't want people to think I'm speaking against it, but I'm confused why we need to have a motion to make a request to the SNRCMP. Are they not our contractors? Do we have to make a motion? Like, I'm just confused why we're making this a motion unless we wanted to talk about it. But at the end of the day, they're our contractor.
Yeah, so I can answer that, Councillor Pizicny. Thanks for that question. Yes, they are our contractor, and we do have discussions with them on a regular basis. As Councillor Delisle, or not Councillor, sorry, Staff Sergeant Delisle, pointed out during the meeting, we are reduced in the number of officers we have currently within the town of Edson. So they are currently operating with minimums because of vacancies and leaves. So what this will do, this motion will do, it's responding to concerns that were raised during the meeting, but also allow the RCMP to utilize overtime dollars to put some overtime shifts on if need be for this particular issue, to focus on this particular issue within the community. If you look at our strategic policing priorities for the community, this is not listed as one of them. So this gives some direction formally from council requesting the focus in this area to address this particular concern. In my conversations with Staff Sergeant Delisle, he has already budget availability to do this, so he doesn't foresee needing additional funds to make this happen, just because we have a reduced number of members. So there is some flexibility within his budget to make this happen. Does that answer your question? All right, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Chouinard.
Mine was similar, and I think it was already answered, but I am also in support of this motion. I'm just looking at, don't we already have RCMP patrolling? But your exclamation or your explanation summarized it, why the value of the motion, because it does make sense, and it'll kind of open ears and say, yes, we need the extra officers, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Just to further elaborate a little bit on that response, because of the reduced members, the proactiveness that they would normally do when we're at full staff isn't there right now. So that's another piece to that puzzle. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. I'll move that council authorize the mayor to send a letter on behalf of concerned businesses and council outlining the overall themes during the recent homelessness town hall and requesting the MLA, MP, Minister of Public Safety, Minister of Social Services, and Minister of Mental Health and Addictions attend a town hall with Edson businesses, business owners to discuss these concerns. And I'll speak to that a little bit. Some of the attendees in the town hall obviously understood that as a municipality, we have limited means of dealing with these issues, but we're wondering why higher levels of government were not attending or did not attend the meeting. Obviously, this was an RCMP town hall, so this is just formally requesting the ministers that are responsible for these areas to come and answer questions from the public. They have more answers than we would as a council. And they're the ones setting direction for those various ministries. And some of the questions that people have are not questions that the RCMP can answer. They can only enforce the laws that are passed. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Council, any questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor, I give my comments on this motion, supportive of the motion as well. This was heard loud and clear by a number of members at the town hall that they want to hear from, they kept saying the higher ups, they want to hear from the provincial and federal authorities regarding this. We heard a variety of suggestions that night, some viable and some just not viable, right? The suggestion of putting unhoused individuals on buses and transporting them to Edmonton is not a viable thing. In fact, if anyone's asking, we actually did that already, twice, during our evacuations. And all the unhoused came back. They came back for the same reason that we're all here, because Edson's their home. So we need to find other solutions, long-term solutions. And to have those solutions, we're going to need these ministers, these MLA, the MP in the room to hear the frustrations of our community to work towards those solutions. It was mentioned that a few members in the public there were writing letters. And of course, we write letters all the time from this council. I see, though, that the province and the federal government will just take our letters and you just put them in the pile. And I was very clear at that meeting. If everyone in that room, if 100 letters were sent to the minister, all of a sudden, Mayor Zahara will get a phone call from that minister. Why did I just get 100 letters from your community regarding this situation? And all of a sudden, some action might be taken. So we encourage members of the public or anyone watching tonight, if you see these issues, to write your MLA and write the ministers and say, you want a meeting and you want to see changes. So this is our way of doing our part to say that we're committed to finding these solutions with the different levels of government. So supportive of the motion.
All right, any further comments? Councillor Chachka.
Thanks. Through to the mayor, I guess I should say. So definitely supportive of having a letter outlining the themes that happened and the conversation during the town hall. I just have a question about how you're thinking about, you're inviting them all to attend a town hall with Edson business owners to discuss the concerns. So are we planning to host one, or is this a bit more ambiguous? I'm just kind of wondering where you're headed with that, or if they would like to come to the next one, whenever that might be. Just curious about how you're thinking.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Chachka. Excellent question. So I did speak to our MLA. I did want to give him the heads up that this was coming. If the ministers are open to a town hall, absolutely. We will do what we can to make it happen. I'm always happy to have ministers in our community. We've had a number of ministers come to our community, and it's very fruitful for them to at least to see what's going on in our community. So if they're willing and able, absolutely, we'll certainly help collaborate and coordinate that. Obviously, we're looking for a number of different individuals to make that happen. We'll work with the MLA's office as well. I don't know if they're going to be open to that. They may also suggest doing a telephone town hall, and that's fine too. We can do something like that, and the tech's pretty easy to do that. So I think the first order of business here is just to outline those concerns and seeing if there's any interest to have that discussion. Yeah. Thank you. Any other further questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried. And I will further move that council lobby higher levels of government for enhanced resources in the community, help those seeking mental health and addictions treatment, and for more affordable transitional housing options in the community. I will speak to that. So, obviously, we are doing a housing study, and the Housing Accelerator Fund from the federal government, once that study is complete, we'll be able to look at maybe applying for some housing. I know the task force is looking at some options as well. We have seen an increase in addictions, mental health spaces in this province. But being in rural communities, getting those that are that have mental health or addictions issues connected to those services is often very difficult. There are success stories in our community. Unfortunately, for privacy reasons, we can't share those success stories. It's up to those individuals to share those stories. And we also have situations where there are people wanting to seek treatment, but they have no means of getting to the facility. And even if they do get to the facility, if they are successful in that treatment program, they have no place to go after that. They may not have family members. They may not have that support system. There's a reason why they are in the cycle of addictions. And so that's why you need the transitional housing, and you need halfway houses and things like that to move them through the system. I know, unfortunately, from experience, not my personal experience, but an experience of somebody that I knew for many years, that if you release somebody after treatment and they end up in the same situation where they were before, they're just going to go back to that lifestyle. They're going to hang out with the people they know. I think what this motion does and what we have been lobbying for is for better connected services in rural Alberta. I know they've invested money over in Gun. I know we have commitments from various agencies that will help transport people into those treatment programs. But I also know of a recent situation where there was an individual looking for treatment and he was turned down because he was too complex of a case. So these are challenges. There's challenges with police, finding individuals that might be having a mental health crisis, driving them all the way to Edmonton, only to find out, oh, we're just going to change their medication and send them back with you. These are not solutions. We need to start taking these, the government and the agencies that make these decisions need to do more in order to help these individuals. We have an individual that has had mental health issues in our community, and it took 7 years before she was put into a facility. And that's with multiple agencies. And, and it's unfortunate because people should not have to suffer on the streets. And people that want help should be able to get that help, and it should be easy to get that help. And unfortunately, I don't think we're there yet. Basically, this motion is continuing what we have been doing for many years. We have brought forward motions. Alberta municipalities have had motions that have been approved by the membership, and we still see the same results in our communities. So with that, is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor, and my comments on this motion, again, supportive of the motion. A lot of people in the room, talked about the like crime or being victims to crime with regards to the downtown core. And I'm not saying if you don't commit a crime, you shouldn't have consequences. Of course you should have consequences. But if we want to get to the root of these issues, then we have to think further than that. And that is dealing with mental health and addictions and those types of things, and bringing those centers and bringing those resources to our community is absolutely necessary. Today, in one of my grade 9 class, I had a probation officer as a guest speaker, and the staff sergeant law was in as a guest speaker. And the probation officer said, one of the biggest needs we have in our community is transitional home housing. It's one of the biggest needs. And we need that support for those individuals who want to get into a clean lifestyle and get out of that cycle that Mayor Zahara talked about. And of course, when you have these resources, there's an expectation as well. There has to be the expectation that you're going to go get these resources and then maybe fall off again, and get these resources and fall off again. It's not just a one-time cure-all, but we need to provide these resources and continue to advocate for them. So I could say the task force would certainly be supportive of these motions, because this helps the end game of working towards those long-term solutions, right? To help and as quoted at the meeting a few weeks ago, we have 72 unhoused individuals in Edson. Like 7 of which are youth. That's 27 and under, 5 are seniors, 65 and over. That we can assist, that we can, think about long-term solutions of how to assist these individuals. Earlier tonight, Councillor Chachka, you mentioned regarding the Community Care Foundation, the subcommittee that you sit on. Just a question to you, in terms of the doctor recruitment, can you expand this to include mental health? You had alluded to this, or you mentioned that we need mental health counselors, and we're certainly short on that. Can that be included within the mandate that you're going to create? Because that's a huge portion of solving this issue.
Not queued up there. Oh, there you go.
Okay, through the mayor to Councillor Taylor. Yes, I did allude to that. So in our current draft terms of reference, the purpose of the committee is to attract, retain, and integrate qualified healthcare professionals to the Edson region to support a sustainable healthcare system. Prioritization is determined by the areas of healthcare providers who are in the greatest need. So as we gather more information, that may be an area that I think right now the physician is that big component, but following that may be an area that we could look at.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to Councillor Chachka, thank you, and it's good to hear that could be certainly integrated into the mandate. So again, supportive of the motion, and this goes to a long way again to advocate for those resources for long-term solutions to our community.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? I just mentioned to your comment there, Councillor Taylor, those 72 individuals, those are ones accessing services. So I do want to clarify that there's potentially more that are not accessing services through the programs provided in the community. And the programs that we do provide in the community are pretty minuscule in nature. It's not the where-all be-all. So I just wanted to clarify that. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. And can I please get a motion that the meeting move into a closed session pursuant to Section 17, 19, and 24 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act? Thank you, Councillor Taylor, if you're going to move that.
I so move.
Thank you. All those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. All right. Thank you, everyone. Do we have Amanda on the line? Okay. So we have one item coming out of closed session. I will mention that Councillor Chouinard got called away due to the emergency road conditions we have in our region with freezing rain, so he had to go off to work, so he did leave. Ms. Veerboom, we do have a motion that we'd like to put on the screen.
Okay.
Do you have the information?
Sorry, it's just pausing for a moment here.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. So in light of changes to the ATE policy in Alberta, Council is bringing forward a motion that Council direct administration to submit a letter to the province allowing for the town of Edson to install permanent speed indicators at both entrances to town as well as the eastbound lane of the overpass. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
I so move.
Thank you for that, Councillor Taylor. Council, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried, and I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.